Hi everybody, this is Laura Susan Johnson, and I'm interrupting my whistleblower series for a different one. It's the No More Reboots one, and I'm a little bit late on this one, but it's for Terminator Dark Fate. I guess it looks kind of dark in here. But I guess that's appropriate. I love Linda Hamilton. I really do. And everybody loves Arnie for one reason or another. I love him because he's just a likable, big, teddy bear of a guy. I never really liked his macho movies where he's the cigar chomping, bicep flexing, brute, but I like movies like The Terminator and T2 and Junior and really honestly just movies where he's not the, John Wayne archetype. So Terminator Dark Fate, I'm very disappointed, very sad, and I think I've finally come to the conclusion that this franchise is indeed dead. It's been dead since 2003. It's really been dead since 2009. It's been a pile of shit since 2015. And now they're just kicking a really dead, rotted carcass now in 2019. And I consider myself a very, very hardcore fan of this series. It never should have been a franchise. Honestly, I know I'm going to get a lot of bullshit for this, but they didn't even need T2, honestly. They didn't really need it. It's a great movie. It's definitely, I agree with many of the people who say it's one of the best sequels of all time. It's not the best sequel of all time. I'll give that one to Aliens. But one of the best sequels of all time. But the thing is, there are plot holes, including the fact that nothing dead will go through, and the T-1000, there is nothing alive about him, and he somehow goes through. So there's a plot hole there that either they somehow modified the time displacement equipment between T1 and T2 to where liquid metal dead stuff will go through, or they just totally screwed up. Again, John Connor, played by Edward Furlong, should have been if he was supposed to be only 10 years old in 1995. Remember, the film was released to theaters in 91. Well, he was wearing a Public Enemy t-shirt, which was huge in 91. If he was indeed being portrayed in 1995, then he should have been played by a younger child, because Edward Furlong was way more than 10 years old. And I know I'm kind of riffing on T2 a lot here, so it seemed more like it was taking place in 1996 or 7, getting very close to the projected Judgment Day in 1997. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just very disappointed in the way that in Genesis. I'm still angrier at Genesis than Dark Fate, though, In Genesis, they just flat out turned John Connor into a nanotech cyborg, which is the stupidest thing I've ever seen, really. I can't hold the camera very well, excuse me. They turn him into a nanotech type thing, which is vulnerable to magnets, and that first time I saw that technology was in a Jeremy Sisto movie from 2004 called 1.0. It was an Icelandic and Japanese film. 1.0, that's the name of it. And Big Hero 6 had that, and also Pixels, that awful Adam Sandler movie. So yeah, it's nothing new. It was nothing new with John Connor being turned. It was terrible that he was turned into a villain, which slapped me in the face. It's almost as it is as horrifying, just in a different way. And James Cameron basically did what Vincent Ward did to Dwayne Hicks and Rebecca Jordan, Newt, in Aliens 3. It wasn't Fincher who did it, remember. Fincher came on board way late in the game, after they'd gone through at least 2 or 3 other directors for Alien 3. Fincher's blameless in the killing of Newt and Hicks. It's mainly Vincent Ward, a guy from New Zealand, who I believe said in an interview he hated Newt, not Carrie so much, but he hated Newt's character. He thought her very annoying. And why he decided to kill Hicks, or someone decided to kill Hicks, was beyond my understanding. It was just so much less of a story. It had a bunch of people who looked exactly alike, and none of them were likable, none of them were redeemable. And even with the improved assembly cut, it was just garbage. So, and Cameron was, at the 2016 30-year reunion gathering, and he was saying, Fincher killed off, Newt and Hicks, and it was like, no, Fincher didn't. And now you're killing off the very reason Terminator was so beloved by fans. You're killing off John Connor. Just moments after T2 ends with that darkened highway scene, with the lines painted on the pavement and this unknown future stretching before them. Perfect ending, even though, as I say, and I will continue to say, T1 had the perfect ending with the pregnant young lady driving off into the horizon, into an unknown future, driving into Mexico to prepare for a possible apocalypse. She driving away alone and completely by herself to shape her son into a world leader. That's inspiring. It's perfect. It really didn't need a sequel, but it got one. It really got one, and James Cameron had the technology at his hands to make the sequel he wanted. And again, the one complaint that really does stick out is the fact that Reese said in the first movie, nothing dead will go through this machine. Nothing that's non-organic will pass through it. That's why when you go through with clothes on, the clothes will stay behind while you come through completely naked. And you can't bring any futuristic weapons with you. You can't bring any futuristic technology with you. So that always will be an itch I cannot scratch, a plot hole that I cannot fill. This T1000 that doesn't have one single organic component that comes through just fine. It can create a uniform, a policeman's uniform out of liquid metal. It can create another shape, human shape. It can replicate the stepmother. It can replicate guard at the, mental institution. It can replicate Sarah Connor herself. So that's really a problem for me. And yet, at the same time, I gave T2 9.5 out of 10 stars just because it had a few flaws. T1 always will get a 10.10 or 10.0 out of 10.0 stars. Because I have no problem with it. I don't have any problem with the antiquated Muppet makeup on a $6 million budget. As I've said before, it's pretty fucking impressive, and I'm tired of hearing all the bitching about the Muppet head looking fake, and the stop motion looking old and antiquated. Shut the fuck up. $6.5 million in 1984 by a company like Orion, who didn't even, invest a little effort into advertising, in my opinion. This movie is incredible. T1, Terminator 1, is an incredible movie. And yeah, I'm a little sad that they cut a few scenes, I don't think that Kyle Reese would have pointed a gun at Sarah, even in a moment of adrenaline and defense. But the thing with Sarah being proactive and wanting to stop Cyberdyne was very impressive to me, and they could have cut around all that stuff. And a lot of people wondered why in the theatrical cut they never saw Kyle reacting to this beautiful world with grass and trees and flowers coming from this charred vista of dead corpses and skulls littering the cityscape, nothing but black and no sunlight and eating out of rubbish cans and whatnot. If you don't like the crying, if you think that's too pussy for you, they could have toned down the crying. I don't know. Or they could have just had him say, "This is not where I belong. I've never seen this. It's so beautiful. I don't belong here." And had him just suddenly, have a moment of just real, a real reaction. I thought it was excellent, but a lot of people thought, well, no, that was pussy of him. And that's just the same toxic masculinity, and I know I'm going to be called a feminazi and all that shit. I'm so tired of the feminazi stuff. That's such an old argument. I like Danielle, is it Danielle Harris? No, I'm sorry, Mackenzie Harris. Mackenzie Davis. I'm sorry. I've got a lot of very, very confused names here. Mackenzie Harris is a agender, androgynous, cybernetic, or cyborg Kyle Reese in this movie. I'm calling her a she because, to say they or it will just confuse me and start me having to correct myself over and over again. But she's actually my favorite character without me having to see the movie. Just by seeing previews and watching movie reviews, which are pretty much 100% bad reviews, that nobody's giving this movie a good review at all because they're like me. You get rid of Skynet, which has become a name that we've all come to love, even though it's the villain. We've come to love Skynet as a trademark villain in a franchise of mostly shitty movies, but at least 2 damn good movies. And you've disposed of the leader for what I really truly think is a feminazi kind of thing, is that we've got to have women everywhere being the leader of everything. And I truly hope that Bernie Sanders becomes our president, and whether or not he has a woman vice president, I don't care. I identify as genderless, even though I'm a female body, and I do support female causes, and I do consider myself a feminist. But I write about men who are in trouble. I write about men who are in real trouble, being victimized by real crimes. And I care about men and women, you know. I believe that men are victimized just as often as women are by these crimes that we consider women's crimes, such as rape and sexual assault, sexual harassment. So, before you call me a feminazi, think twice. Because not all of us who do want women to be equal are the ones that preach feminism without giving a shit about men. I give a shit about men very much. I've seen men suffer very much in my family, in my circle of friends, and I write about it all the time. So, Mackenzie Davis plays Grace, blonde, very boyish, tall, androgynous looking, and she is just hell-bent on protecting this young Mexican girl who unfortunately gives a very poor performance, according to these critics. And from what I've seen, they're right. She gives this really weird, like, I'm gonna stand and fight, and that's the only hint of a world leader you see in the whole movie. Otherwise, you just see her learning how to shoot bazookas and shit. But I don't see a John Connor there. I don't see what I saw in T2 at the beginning with this guy that everybody reveres, and it has nothing to do with sex. It's just that they picked another Emilia Clarke to play the tough chick. And there's nothing tough about this chick. She's a little tiny... You gotta get women who have a presence. You have to get women who can stand at least tall and have a posture about them. You know, Mackenzie Davis, you know, she was a cyborg, so she doesn't count. She was more like I told you, a genderless Kyle Reese, the Protector. She came down from the future naked and had to, you know, gather up all the resources she needed, and then she went to find this Mexican girl whose family and herself and her family work at a auto plant or something like that in Mexico. And the reason this is all in Mexico is because that's where Sarah Connor has settled, and that's where her son John was callously tossed down the shitter. Okay? So this Danny Ramos chick, she's just uninspiring, no presence whatsoever. There's nothing there. Even if she's only 5'1" or 5'2", I guess Emilia Clarke was 5'4" or 5'3" or something. Even she, Clarke, at least sort of commanded a little presence. But this Ramos, I don't know the actress's real name, but she doesn't have any screen charisma or presence, and I'm sorry, but it's true. They could have gotten a more experienced actress, and they could have gotten, I mean, it doesn't matter how tall or short or what race you are. That's not about that. I hope you're reading me. It's about presence. It's about personality. You know, I hate Jean-Claude Van Damme because he can do all the kickboxing and martial arts he wants to do, but you have to have a personality to stand out and do good movies, and that's why all his movies suck. Linda Hamilton, again, I love her. I always will love her. I watched a movie about her taking in some German and American soldiers during World War II. It was a true story. It was a Hallmark movie. I loved it. It was good. I like almost everything I see her in, I really enjoy. And, you know, the same thing with Michael Biehn. Almost everything I see him in, I enjoy. I saw him in a very gritty, very 90s movie called Strapped the other day, about these inner city kids in trouble, and he plays this cop that's trying to help them and straighten them out, trying to get them out of trouble. And it was extremely gritty, extremely disturbing in a lot of ways, but it was great. And, you know, movies today, it's like they're nothing more than, we gotta keep everybody's attention because they all have the attention span of 3-year-olds. And it's just action piece after action piece. Big weapons, orange explosions, no character, no story, no emotion. Not even Linda Hamilton or Arnold could really do anything in this movie to save it, and Arnold doesn't appear until maybe an hour and a half into the movie sometime. And this is all from reviews I've watched on YouTube and you know, just commentaries and things. I'm not about to see this movie. I don't even think I want to see this movie by the time on demand or, you know, DVR on HBO. I have still never watched the entire thing from Genesis Weiss, as in why did they make it, because I'm just so insulted and so hurt by the way these people just butcher such great stories. They butcher them. They callously chop them to bits and throw them down the shitter and flush. As far as I'm concerned, it's always going to be Terminator 1 and Terminator 2, and then the story is over. And the story can end just like that. You don't know what happens to John and Sarah. They drive away into the future to Mexico, and they live who knows ever after, because we don't know what the future holds. The future is still ahead of us. We're not even into 2020 yet. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know who our next president's going to be. We don't even know when we die and how we die. So let's just treat Terminator as a perfect movie, with part 1 coming out in 84 and part 2 coming out in 91, and leave it at that. Just leave it. John Connor isn't dead. John Connor didn't turn into a nanobot. Okay? Dark Fate, fuck it. I love you, Linda, I love you, Arnold, but I'm sorry. You guys should never have signed on to this. This is crap. Cyberdyne still exists. Legion, fuck it. Legion doesn't exist. Goodbye.